Usually when we sit down to do a deep dive, we are looking at something manageable.
Right. Manageable is a good word for it.
Yeah, manageable,
Right.
like a shift in the global energy market, or maybe a new breakthrough in biosynth tech. Or, I don't know, maybe just a really dense biography of a historical figure. We take the stack of papers, we highlight the good stuff, and we try to make sense of the world for you.
Exactly.
But today I honestly hesitated before I even hit the record button.
I don't blame you at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been in this analysis game for a really long time, and I have seen leak dumps before.
Right.
I've seen the Snowden files, the Panama Papers, the old WikiLeaks archives.
Yeah.
But what we have on the desk today isn't just a leak. It feels like we are holding a live grenade.
That is the feeling exactly. It feels dangerous to even know this stuff. Because we aren't looking at standard classified files here. We are looking at a stack of digital documents that were marked Omega Black.
Omega Black.
Yeah.
And for the listeners who might not be familiar with intelligence classification tiers, that is effectively the ceiling.
It doesn't go higher.
It does not go higher. Top secret is one thing, but Omega Black is a designation usually reserved for existential threats or foundational secrets. It means the information contained in these files isn't just sensitive, it's structural.
Structural.
Meaning, if this information gets out, it doesn't just embarrass a government. It changes the agreed-upon reality of the world we live in.
And the only reason we are even allowed to have this conversation right now is because of a massive, unprecedented data dump from an entity calling itself the Middleman Institute.
Right.
The distribution source is traced back to a digital signature known only as Bugsy Prime. Now, we've tracked this Bugsy through some of the metadata in the prep work, and this isn't a state actor.
No.
This isn't a corporate spy.
Not at all. The digital footprint is erratic. It's highly emotional. And that is what makes this Middleman Institute leak so unique. Usually when you see a data dump of this magnitude, there is a clear, calculated political agenda.
Somebody wants something.
Exactly. Someone wants to topple a regime or short a stock or expose a war crime for leverage. But looking at the metadata here and the aggressive way these files were ripped from the servers, this feels personal.
It feels like an arson investigation. That's what I kept thinking as I was reading through the 4 main dossier, because we have 4 massive stacks of data here. We have Project Phase Exile, the Federation Protocol, the Glass Sermon, and the Stewardship of Order.
So it sound like bad sci-fi novels.
They really do. But they are literally the secret history of the last 30 years. We are talking about the Federation, the Brotherhood of Nod, Zachary Hudson, Kane names that define our entire modern history.
And the leak asserts that everything you think you know about the relationship between those powers is a complete fabrication.
But here is the core question. This is the mystery we really need to solve in this deep dive. Why now?
Right.
Why did Bugsy, this self-proclaimed master commander, decide to burn it all down today? You don't expose an Omega Black archive just for kicks. You do it because you are trying to scream something that nobody is listening to.
And as we go through these files, I think you are going to realize that the trigger wasn't geopolitics.
Yeah.
It wasn't money. It wasn't even ideology, really. It was about a brother.
Yeah.
It was about a massive cover-up. And it was about a place, a terrifying theoretical place, that the files refer to as the chaos gutters.
God, just saying that term makes my skin crawl. The chaos gutters. We are going to get into exactly what that means, and trust me, it is so much worse than you think. But our mission today is to sift through these 4 massive dossiers. We're going to reconstruct the truth that Bugsy Prime wanted the world to see.
We're going to look at the Phase Exile project, the secret collusion between the Federation and Nod, and the private letters between Hudson and Kane.
We have to start with the spark, though. We cannot understand the geopolitical conspiracy until we understand the specific human tragedy that caused Bugsy to break protocol in the first place. We need to open File 18A.
Right. File 18A, this is the beginning of the Project Phase Exile dossier.
So if you go to the public library right now, or check the Federation's official archives, you will find a record for a man named Sephiroth Kuro.
A very prominent figure.
Very. The official story is that he was a brilliant physicist, a pioneer in quantum spatial dynamics. He was involved in a high-stakes experiment regarding long-range teleportation.
The Slipstream Initiative.
The Slipstream Initiative, exactly. And the narrative we have all been told, the story his family was told, is that there was a catastrophic spatial misalignment, a tragedy. The math was off, the machine buckled, and Sephiroth was scattered into the ether. A martyr for science. A hero who died pushing the boundaries of human knowledge.
That is the statue they built for him. That is the eulogy read at his memorial. But looking at File 18A, the internal after-action report from the Federation Science Bureau, the reality is just nauseating. I want to read the specific line from the executive summary, paragraph 4.
Go ahead.
It says, quite plainly, failure condition was the intended outcome.
Failure condition was the intended outcome. I stared at that sentence for 10 minutes when I first read it.
It changes everything. It means the teleportation array wasn't calibrated to send him somewhere safely. It was calibrated to fail. It was calibrated for, quote, permanent strategic removal. Sephiroth Kuro wasn't killed in an accident. He was targeted.
But, and this is where the Omega Black classification really shows its teeth, it wasn't an assassination in the traditional sense.
No.
They didn't shoot him. They didn't poison him.
This is where we get into the technical horror of what they actually did. File 18K contains the engineering schematics for the device they put him in. It mentions a phase anchor deliberately tuned to collapse upon arrival. And then there's this phrase, one-way quantum shear.
To understand one-way quantum shear, you really have to imagine reality like fabric. Usually if you punch a hole in it to teleport, you stitch it back up on the other side. You close the loop.
Right. But what this device did was unravel the fabric while he was inside it. It didn't kill his body immediately. It displaced him from our causality.
It displaced him from causality and sent him to the chaos gutters.
Correct. The Federation researchers needed a term for the subdimensional region where the math of the universe stops working. In the margins of File 18K, a lead researcher literally scrawled a handwritten note that says, the gutters of reality where failed timelines collect.
Where failed timelines collect. Can we just pause on the existential horror of that for a second?
It's staggering.
It implies that there isn't just empty space outside of our dimension. There is a landfill, a place where things that shouldn't exist go to rot. And they sent a human being there on purpose.
It is officially classified in File 18C as non-lethal erasure. That is the bureaucratic term for it. And the logic behind using it is terrifyingly cold.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you kill a martyr, you create a symbol. If Sephiroth Kuro had been shot by a sniper, his followers would have rallied in the streets. If you put him in a supermax prison, he becomes a prisoner of conscience. But if you scatter him into a subdimensional void...
You create a question mark.
Exactly. You create a mystery, you create an absence. The family doesn't get a body to bury. They get a scientific accident.
Yeah.
They spend the rest of their lives wondering if he is still out there, if he is suffering, if he can somehow be brought back. It paralyzes them. And that is exactly what the Federation wanted.
But why Sephiroth? I mean, I looked through his background check in File 18B. He wasn't a terrorist. He wasn't selling secrets to the enemies of the state. He was a scientist. He was charismatic, sure, but he wasn't a combatant. Why go to such extreme lengths, literally breaking the laws of physics to get rid of him?
Because of the math. This is the part that makes you realize how the Federation actually operates behind closed doors. It is not about justice. It is about probability. File 18C introduces a concept called the Royal Kuro variable.
The Royal Kuro variable. It sounds like a chess move.
It is a predictive model. The Federation has these massive AI systems that model the future of human evolution. And they kept running into a recurring problem. Every time they ran a simulation where the Kuro family was active and unified, the Federation's long-term plans failed. The analysts called the Kuro bloodline a convergence catalyst.
A convergence catalyst. So basically, they are the main characters of reality.
In a statistical sense, yes. The files say that when the Kuro family is together, they alter wars, they shift alliances, and they accelerate technological breakthroughs at, quote, statistically impossible rates. They had a 92.4% probability of interfering with the stewardship of order, which we are going to get to later.
So they were just too good. They were too effective at what they did.
They're too independent. They were a variable that simply could not be controlled. And if there's one thing the Federation hates, it's variables. The goal, as stated in File 18 Omega, was to break the structure without touching it.
Break the structure without touching it.
Yes. If you kill the whole family, you create a massive public scandal. But if you remove the eldest brother, Sephiroth, you destabilize the specific gravity of the family unit. You cause an emotional fracture. The surviving members of the family stop focusing on changing the world, and they start focusing on mourning. They spend all their energy searching for a brother who is trapped in a dimension that doesn't officially exist.
It is weaponized grief. That is what it is. They use the family's love for Sephiroth as a containment strategy.
Precisely. And this brings us right to the voice behind the leak, Bugsy Prime.
Yeah.
Because included in this massive dump of documents, there was a text file, an appended message that wasn't part of the original Federation archive. It was injected by Bugsy.
I have that text right here. And honestly, after reading all the cold clinical language of the non-lethal erasure reports, this hits like a freight train. Let me just read a section of it.
Please do.
So it wasn't a malfunction. It wasn't bad math. It wasn't some tragic accident like they told us. They did it. They shoved my big brother into the gutters of existence because he was statistically inconvenient.
You can almost hear the voice cracking in those sentences. Statistically inconvenient. It takes the Federation's entire justification and exposes it for the absolute absurdity it is.
And Bugsy goes on to say, they didn't even have the guts to call it an execution. They called it a variable adjustment. Hudson wanted us blind, Kane wanted us weaker, and they smiled, shook hands, and erased him like he was a rounding error. That's why I hate the Federation. Not because of their wars, not because of their lies, because they took my brother away from me.
That is the crux of the entire leak. We so often analyze history through the lens of great powers. What did the Federation gain? What did not lose? But here, the motive for exposing the greatest conspiracy in human history is pure raw grief. Bugsy isn't leaking this to save the world, necessarily. Bugsy is doing this because the Federation treated a human life, a brother, as a data point.
And notice the specific names Bugsy drops there. Hudson wanted us blind. Kane wanted us weaker. That directly implies that they were working together on this, that the erasure of Sephiroth Kuro wasn't just
That is the public narrative. That is the story that gets soldiers to enlist and gets trillion-dollar funding packages approved. But File 00A completely dismantles that binary. It reveals that the Federation was operating as a silent partner to the Brotherhood of Nod.
a silent partner. I mean, imagine telling a GDI soldier bleeding out in the trenches of a yellow zone that his government is a silent partner to the people actively shooting at him.
The file uses the term asymmetric stabilization. The logic was that the Federation genuinely believed that if any single power, specifically their own military arm, GDI achieved uncontested dominance over the globe, humanity would stagnate. They believed that lasting peace was actually dangerous for the long-term evolution of the species. They needed a challenger. They needed, quote, necessary global pressure.
So they needed Nod to exist. They needed a boogeyman to keep everyone sharp.
More than that, they needed a sparring partner.
Yeah.
And not just a weak one, they needed a strong one. If you look at File 02F, which details the supply chain logistics, this goes way beyond just letting them exist. We are talking about Operation Veil Lattice.
I looked at the manifest lists in O2F. It is completely shocking. We are seeing records of humanitarian relief shipments entering contested yellow zones. These were heavily flagged as medical aid, food supplies, water filtration units, standard UN relief stuff.
But look at the sub-manifests that were encrypted inside those shipping logs. The water filtration units contained high-grade, tiberium-resistant alloys.
The exact same alloys used in the hull plating of Nod's stealth tanks.
Exactly. And the medical scanners. They contain neuro interface chips that are identical. I mean, the serial numbers perfectly match to the ones used in Nod's cyborg command uplinks. The Federation was literally shipping the raw materials for Nod's war machine right under GDI's nose.
How did they even get away with this? I mean, GDI isn't stupid. They have orbital satellites. They have strict border checkpoints.
That is where the acting collusion comes in. File 03H discusses satellite window manipulation. The Federation wasn't just shipping illicit goods. They were actively blinding their own watchdog. The file details how Federation intelligence officers would introduce navigation errors into GDI intelligence relays.
So just a casual, oops, the satellite is offline for 20 minutes.
Exactly. Oh, it's solar flare interference, or we have to do routine calibration. And in that precise 20-minute window, a massive Nod convoy would move across the border completely undetected. The Federation was actively curating the war. They were the stage managers, ensuring that the actors hit their marks on time.
But why? I mean, I get the stagnation argument on a philosophical level, but this is blood. This is millions of lives lost in these conflict zones. File 07X seems to try to justify it, but it is a terrifying justification.
It is the three futures model. The Federation ran massive predictive simulations, likely using the exact same AI tech that identified the Kuro family.
Let's break those down. Future 1.
Future 1, GDI victory. Total order. The result, stagnation. Humanity survives, but we stop evolving technologically because there's no pressure. Tiberium eventually spreads faster than our ability to adapt to it, and Earth becomes totally uninhabitable.
So peace equals death by crystal. Got it. Future 2.
Future 2, Nod victory. Total chaos. The result is rapid evolution, but massive civilian casualties and unpredictable transcendence. The global society collapses into warring tribalism.
So they went with option 3?
Prolonged conflict.
Yeah.
That was the goal. Not victory for either side, conflict. They wanted a forever war. The Federation believed that continuous warfare forces rapid adaptation. It forces innovation in medicine, in weapons tech, in logistics. They viewed the war as a giant laboratory. Humanity was the experiment, and Nod was the stressor they introduced to the petri dish to see what would happen.
It creates this deeply unsettling image of the Federation leaders, not as presidents or generals, but as scientists in lab coats watching rats fight in a cage. Let's turn up the heat and see if they grow thicker fur.
That is exactly how they viewed it. It was purely clinical. And if you think the supply chain stuff is bad, we really need to talk about the physical infrastructure. Because the Glass Sermon dossier, the third stack of files on our desk, shows that this wasn't just about shipping parts across borders. They were literally living together.
File 10D, shared black sites. This is the part of the leak that feels like it just breaks reality. We aren't talking about backroom deals in a smoky office in Geneva. We are talking about shared real estate.
The leak reveals that several major Nod temples, these massive, iconic religious structures that serve as the beating heart of Kane's power, were built directly on top of Federation research vaults.
Literally on top of them, like a layer cake.
A layer cake of global conspiracy. The upper levels were Nod recruitment centers, places of worship, barracks for the Brotherhood. But the underground strata, sometimes kilometers deep into the earth, were high-tech Federation laboratories.
And the most damning piece of physical evidence in the section is the elevator schematics.
Yes, the dual authentication protocols. The file describes a high-security elevator shaft connecting the Nod temple down to the Federation vault. To operate the lift, you needed 2 keys to be turned simultaneously. You needed a biometric palm print from a Nod hand of Kane, a high-ranking priest, and a digital credential from a Federation science officer level 5.
Just picture that visual for a second. The elevator doors open, a guy in a flowing Nod robe walks in, a guy in a sterile Federation lab coat walks in. They nod at each other, turn their keys, and go down to work. It implies a level of daily operational cooperation that is just mind-boggling. They were co-workers.
And they were working on the exact same projects. That is the kicker here. File 13K discusses joint technology. Take the Tiberium immunolattice, for example.
This was the internal filtration system found in Nod's elite soldiers, right? The confessors. It allowed them to walk straight through heavy Tiberium fields without their lungs melting.
Correct. For years, GDI analysts thought this was proprietary Nod technology, some mystical dark science gift from Kane. But File 13K proves that the Federation invented it. Their biolabs developed the lattice from scratch.
So why give it to Nod? If you have this miracle tech, why not use it for your own GDI soldiers to keep them safe?
Because of cultural acceptance probability. The Federation ran the numbers on their own populace. They realized that if a democratic government tried to mandate injecting soldiers with a cybernetic, alien, crystal-based implant, the public would absolutely revolt. It would be seen as unnatural, as monstrous. Human rights groups would shut it down overnight.
But if Nod does it?
If Nod introduces it as a religious sacrament, as a sacred way to become one with the divine Tiberium, the faithful literally line up for it. They view it as a blessing, not an illegal medical experiment. So the Federation used Nod's religion as a delivery mechanism for their own bleeding-edge science. They needed a massive test population, and Kane happily provided the volunteers.
It is diabolical marketing. They outsourced their illegal clinical trials to a doomsday cult.
It is mutual eschatological alignment. That is the specific phrase found in the Glass Sermon intro.
Let's unpack that phrase. Eschatological, that's a theological term, right? Dealing with the end times.
Dealing with the end of the world, or the end of an era. The Federation and Nod weren't political allies. They didn't agree on taxes or borders or laws, but they completely agreed on the destination. They both believed that the current version of humanity, Homo sapiens, was fundamentally obsolete. They agreed that the world as we know it had to end to make way for something new.
And to ensure that happened exactly on schedule, they used an AI to script the war, the oracle frame.
File 11F. This is maybe the most cynical part of the whole operation, in my opinion. The Federation used a predictive AI called Oracle Frame to analyze the global battlefield in real time. It would generate what they call strategic anomalies.
Strategic anomalies.
Basically leaks, anonymous tips. It would say, hey, GDI's left flank is currently exposed in Sector 7. Or, hey, there's an undefended supply convoy moving through Sector 9. They fed these tips directly to Nod High Command.
And Nod thought they were just being tactically brilliant.
The lower-level Nod commanders thought they were receiving divine revelations from Kane, or that their global spy network was just incredible. In reality, these were behavioral steering inputs. The Federation was steering the war like a river. If GDI was winning too fast, they would leak intel to Nod to even the odds. If Nod was getting too strong and threatening a total collapse, they would cut the feed and let GDI push them back. They ensured that neither side could ever actually win. They kept the heat at the perfect temperature to boil the frog.
It is the Truman Show, but with global apocalyptic warfare. You have GDI thinking they're fighting for freedom and survival. You have the Nod faithful thinking they are on a holy crusade to ascend. And above them all, you have the Federation and the inner circle of Nod, treating it like a tabletop strategy game where they control both sets of pieces.
And this brings up the Threshold Project.
Right, the Threshold Project, mentioned at the end of the glass sermon.
It was the ultimate shared goal of integrating humans into active Tiberium fields. The document states, "The next world is not built, it is grown." They were preparing the Earth for a post-human era, and the war was just the tilling of the soil.
But for a conspiracy this massive, this tightly controlled over decades, it has to go to the very top. This isn't just rogue scientists and black ops agents trading secrets in an elevator.
No, it goes straight to the architects. And that brings us to the fourth and final source in the dump, the stewardship of order. This dossier focuses exclusively on the personal correspondence between the two most powerful men in this hidden history, Zachary Hudson and Kane.
Now, in the public eye, these two are matter and antimatter. If they touch, the world explodes. Hudson is the Federation hardliner, the face of the law, the Iron General who promises to crush the terrorist threat. Kane is the Messiah, the terrorist mastermind, the pure agent of chaos. They are supposed to hate each other with every fiber of their being.
But these raw, unfiltered files paint a picture of two men who were more like peers than enemies. They were arguably the only two people on Earth who understood what was really happening to the planet.
File 01 describes their first contact. And it wasn't on a battlefield. It wasn't a televised threat. Hudson received a package in his private quarters.
He received a thesis from Kane. Not a rambling manifesto scrawled in blood, but a highly dense academic political philosophy paper titled, "Order is the Only Mercy a Chaotic Species Receives."
And Hudson didn't burn it. He didn't immediately turn it over to his intel chiefs.
He read it, cover to cover, and he annotated it. The file actually contains high-resolution scans of Hudson's handwritten notes in the margins of Kane's paper. He wrote things like, "Valid premise and methodology flawed, but conclusion sound." They started writing back and forth through secure, untraceable channels. Hudson argued for authoritarian federalism control through strict, unyielding law. Kane argued for ascension through structure control, through absolute fanatical belief. But the core agreement was there. Humanity cannot be trusted with freedom during times of existential change.
They both viewed us as children.
Or as patients who don't know what's good for them. There was a fascinating entry in File 03 regarding what they called the Atlas conversation. This was a private face-to-face summit between them. No cameras, no aides, no security details. Just Hudson and Kane in a secure room for 4 hours.
We don't have a transcript of what they actually said in that room, do we?
No, the audio was scrubbed. But we have Hudson's personal audio log from immediately after the meeting. He dictates his impressions. He says, he does not want to rule humanity. He wants to prepare it for something that will.
That sends a chill down my spine. Prepare it for something that will.
Hudson recognized that Kane wasn't just a petty warlord looking for territory. And Kane, in turn, recognized Hudson's immense value. In File 05, Kane describes Hudson in a letter to his inner circle as a man attempting to build permanence in a species addicted to collapse. Kane didn't hate Hudson. He thought Hudson was absolutely necessary.
Necessary how? If Kane ultimately wants to lead the world into this Tiberium ascension, why does he need Hudson standing in his way?
To provide the resistance. You cannot have a glorious revolution without a tyrant to revolt against. Kane needed a strong, rigid, unfeeling structure like the Federation to push against, to radicalize his followers. Look at the oppression, look at the control. We must break free. And Hudson needed a terrifying, unpredictable threat like Kane to justify his own authoritarian measures. We need more surveillance. We need more military spending. We need to suspend civil liberties because the Brotherhood is at the gates. They reinforced each other perfectly.
It's a completely symbiotic relationship, a snake eating its own tail, but on purpose.
Exactly. It's the non-interference pact mentioned in File 04. Hudson issued a standing, highly classified order to his top intelligence chiefs. He told them, do not chase ghosts that are pushing in the same direction we are.
Pushing in the same direction we are, that confirms it plain as day. They had the exact same goal.
Toward a post-human future. They both deeply believed in stewardship through crisis. That pressure war, Tiberium mutation, constant fear, was the only way to force human evolution past its current plateau. Hudson viewed history as a system to be managed, a massive, complex machine. Kane viewed it as a destination to be reached at any cost. But neither of them cared about the individual people caught in the gears of that machine.
And this brings us full circle, back to Bugsy Prime, back to Sephiroth, Kuro, and the Chaos Gutters. Because when you look at this grand design, the stewardship of order, it is all about the big picture. It is about species-level survival. It is about cold, hard statistics.
To Hudson and Kane, humanity is just data. It is a curve on a graph that needs to go up. If you need to burn 1 million people in the yellow zone to ensure the species adapts to Tiberium exposure, that is just math. If you need to manipulate a global war for 20 years to get the right technology funded and developed, that is just efficiency.
But the Kuro family, they didn't fit the math.
No. They were the royal Kuro variable. They were a glitch in the perfect system. The Kuro family represented a completely different kind of power. They were wildly charismatic, but they weren't manipulative like Kane. They were highly competent and organized, but they weren't cruel and authoritarian like Hudson.
They were genuine. They actually wanted to help people.
And that made them incredibly dangerous to the stewardship. If the Kuro family had been allowed to operate freely and influence the war, with their statistically impossible ability to create alliances and solve complex problems,
They might have ended it. They might have actually won the war.
they might have found a peace that didn't involve forced evolution or authoritarian mind control. They might have found a third way.
And that is the one thing the Federation and Nod absolutely couldn't allow. Peace.
Peace stops the experiment. Peace relieves the pressure. Peace means humanity stops evolving and just exists. To Hudson and Kane, that is death. So Sephiroth had to go, not because he was a villain, but because he was a hero in a story that wasn't allowed to have heroes.
Let's refer back to File 18F for a second. This is Hudson's direct encrypted order regarding the Kuro family.
Grief destabilizes. Suspicion unifies. We require neither.
And then File 18H, which is Kane's direct reply and agreement.
Remove the keystone. Let the arch learn to stand without it.
They agreed on it. Hudson and Kane, the two secret architects of the modern world, looked at this one family, this one brilliant brother, and decided he was an inconvenience to their grand evolutionary plan.
So they threw him in the chaos gutters. They literally erased him from causality just to protect their curated war.
And that is why Bugsy leaked it.
Yes. Bugsy looked at this stewardship, this grand philosophical collaboration between the world's most powerful leaders, and saw it for what it really was, a meat grinder.
Bugsy's appended message isn't a political manifesto. It is a primal scream of rage. It is Bugsy saying, you think you are gods. You think you are saving humanity. You threw my brother in the gutter because of a spreadsheet. You are just murderers with better PR.
The Middleman Institute leak is the ultimate rejection of their order. By releasing these files, by showing the entire world, the shared elevators, the secret supply chains, the private letters, the twisted physics of the chaos gutters, Bugsy has introduced pure, unadulterated chaos back into their perfectly controlled system.
The Federation can't pretend to be the neutral good guys anymore. Nod can't pretend to be the sole source of divine truth fighting the corrupt system. The curtain has been violently pulled back.
And effectively, Bugsy has succeeded. The recall order mentioned at the very end of the final dossier came too late. The truth is out there now. The Kuro family might be broken, Sephiroth might be gone into the void, but the system that erased him has been entirely exposed to the light.
So what does this leave us with? We're sitting here looking at these files, realizing that the history of the last 30 years is a meticulously crafted lie. The wars were curated, the technology was shared, the leaders were pen pals.
It leaves us with a very uncomfortable question. We often look at the chaos of the world, the wars, the disasters, the economic collapses, and we wish for someone to take control. We wish for a steady hand on the wheel. If only someone was in charge, things would be okay.
Well, these files show us that there was a hand on the wheel.
There were two hands,
Yeah.
Hudson's and Kane's, and they steered us directly into the storm on purpose.
Because they thought we needed the storm to grow.
Precisely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Middleman Institute leak, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We usually think of peace as the ultimate goal of civilization, the thing we are all striving for. But in the eyes of the people who really run the show, peace is just stagnation. They manufactured horrific wars to force us to evolve.
The question is, now that you know the cost, now that you know about the chaos gutters and the families destroyed to keep the experiment running, is that progress actually worth it?
Or was true peace the one thing they were terrified we might actually achieve on our own?
Bugsy Prime certainly seems to think so. And now, thanks to this leak, the grand experiment is over. We are completely on our own.
And that is a terrifying and exhilarating place to be. That is it for this deep dive into the Omega Black files. A huge thank you to the Middleman Institute, wherever you are, for lighting the match.
Indeed.
We will see you next time. Stay curious and maybe question the math.
Always question the math.
Bye for now.
Well, that's about it. Yeah, I got the deep dive to basically leak all of the Federation and Nod's double dealings. Yep, Nod and the Federation are closer than you think, and it's always been that way. Think about it. Why was Nod never truly defeated? Why does it always keep coming back? Because the Federation has always had Nod soldiers with Federation soldiers. And yes, Mr. Zachary Hudson can silence me, but I put this through the whole feed throughout the entire system. I want everybody to know that Nod and the Federation were working together. I may have saved my brother, but their atrocities will never be fully be let go by me. As the Master Commander of the Middleman Institute, this is my duty to inform the people of what's going on. And I know, Zachary Hudson, you can deny everything. But I have proof, I have evidence, I have fingerprints, and I have one very incriminating videotape. So, ipso facto, I know that all this is real. So, yeah, no, every time you talk about Nod, it's just the scapegoat to kind of push the real connection away. My homie The Question actually helped me out with this. And he was blown away by it. And then when I saw it, I was like, everything I ever thought was true. But, there it is. I just wanted to leave that there. I shall see you all soon. Enjoy that. Sorry, the whole Sonic and Amy going to couples therapy was kind of lackluster. I had to end it quickly so I can go and get some of this data. But, I'll be back tomorrow. Peace. With Chaos Grease. Everybody.